Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another video of Salesforce Makes Sense. This is Himanshu and we are understanding Apex through use cases in our Salesforce Developer Masterclass. Now this is probably the last use case that we will be doing as part of the use cases that we started. This is the 29th use case. So kudos to everyone who has been following the playlist, writing code alongside me. And this use case is the last one. And after this, we'll move on to the next topics for our curriculum. Okay, for those of you who are confident using the schema class, pause the video here, take a look at the use case and try to solve it yourself. Write the code in the comments and let me know how it goes. And for those of you who want to follow along and just understand this use case while I write code and you see it and write it on your side, let's go ahead and get started. All right, return a list of all record types of an sObject. Right, so this is a use case that will be handy wherever and whenever you are working with, let's say, any kind of sObject triggers and you have different record types in the system, right? And you want to do certain kind of activities or certain kind of events or certain kind of actions for a specific record type. So how do you know which record type is the record of, right? That's where you have to fetch, query, or find out the record type info. Alright, so in this use case, we'll take up the schema class again because schema class contains this information about all the record types for all objects. Because remember, we talked about this use case and each object's information is captured within a class which is a part of the schema class. So let's try to explore and exploit that and see if that fits our use case. Okay, so I'm first of all going to go to VS Code and I am going to create my Apex use case 29. I'll get rid of the constructor and I'll create a new method. I'll call it public static void. And what does it say? It says return a list of all record types for an sObject. So ideally, I'm expecting retrieve record types would be the name of my method, and my expectation with the method input parameter would be sObject name. Correct? So it could be account, contact, opportunity, XYZ, ABC, whatever custom object. It can be anything, right? And what do I need to return? I need to return a list of string where the list of string will basically be the record type names. Correct? So it would basically be the record type names. Alright, this is what I would like to return. So I'm just creating this variable right away and this is what I'll return. Is there any issue with the code as of now? Yes, the return type cannot be void. It should be list of string. Correct. Okay, so our template is ready. The stub is created. I can just go ahead and say and try to deploy. Deploy is fine. And now we actually want to perform our code. So before jumping into the code, I would like to take a look at the documentation of schema class. Salesforce, right? Because I have to find something around the schema class to get that information. Okay, and even before jumping into the schema class, I might have shown this to you some time back in some use case, but there's another way to query record types. So you can simply query it by using the object record type, even that's an object. Okay, so if I go ahead and say select ID from record type, you see there's nothing here because no record types are created. Okay, let me just go ahead and create one for you. So let's go to object manager and let's go to account. Let's go to record types and let's create a new one. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and create a new one. And I'll just call it business accounts. All right, that's my first record type. And I'll just keep it active and enabled for everyone. I'll just say next. I'll just choose one page layout. I'll just go ahead and say save and new, and I'll create one more record type so that we can see the query results a bit more properly. Okay, so this would basically be individual accounts. Okay, I'll activate this. I'll say make it available for everyone, and I'll go ahead and say next. I'll choose the same page layout for this record type and I'll say save. So now I have two record types on the account object, right? And before jumping into the query, I'll just quickly try to create one record type on the opportunity object also, okay? So that you understand how that query works and what all filters can you use. This needs a sales process. Let's not choose this option. Let's go to contact. I don't want to take a lot of time for setting this up. Record types. Let's create a new record type on the contact object. This would be person contacts. Okay, it might not make sense, but let's name it person contacts. Let's say next. Let's choose a page layout and let's say save. Okay, so what do we have in our system right now? In our entire system of all the objects, we have one record type on the contact object and two record type on the account object. So now if I try to refresh this grid, you should see 3 entries. See, 3 entries. Okay, what do you want to see and see more fields on the record type? Just simply type record type.obj on the open resource. Okay, how do I open this resource? Basically, again, very beginner information, but yeah, maybe some of you would need it. Command Shift O on a MacBook. Okay, and it would probably be Control Shift O on a Windows. All right, and if not the shortcut, you always have the open resource option available here. Okay, so I just typed out record type and I am just choosing this particular .obj file, and that opens up the object for record type. I had a question from someone in the previous video that Himanshu, the group object is not available in the object manager. See, the internal objects will not be available on the object manager. Okay, these internal objects like record type, group, permission set assignment, all of these kind of objects, right, that Salesforce manages and keeps so that you can track a lot of things behind the scenes, they will not be available on the object manager. Okay, only those standard objects which are useful as entities will be available. So don't expect that all these objects that I'm showing here on the developer console will also be available on the object manager. Not the case. Okay, coming back to the use case, record type.obj has a field called sObject type. Okay, what I can do here is I can simply try to show you what does this contain. So sObject type is basically the object for which the record type is there. So if I execute, you'll see 2 entries are for account, 1 is for contact, as expected. What else is there? There is something that's called a developer name. Now developer name will tell you the API name of each record type. Let's go ahead and try to query and see. So you see business accounts, individual accounts, person accounts. The label is with the space and the API name or the developer name is with the underscore. All right. So what could you do? You can simply say where sObject type is equal to account. So you will only get all the account related records. And that's our use case. Because what we can do is we can simply go to VS Code and we can write that same query and we can just bind the variable through sObject. Correct? Did you understand what I said? If I just say list of record types is equal to select ID, comma, let's say the developer name from record type where sObject type is equal to the sObject name that's mentioned in the method parameter, right? So will this query give me a list of record types? Yes. And it will only give me the list of record types for a specific object. Yes. Yeah. So what can I do next? I can simply iterate over my record type, which is available in the record types variable, this variable right here, correct? Because it's a collection, and I can simply say record type names dot add, because it is a list collection, rt dot developer name, and that's it. That's our use case. Let's go ahead and try to deploy it first of all, and let's see how it looks and how it works. Okay, if I go ahead here and I simply say 29 dot retrieve record types, and I'll put the object name as sObject as contact, so it should give me only one record as the return. Let's execute it. Fine. Let's open the debug log. It says person underscore contacts. Simply change the method parameter to account. You will see that you have 2 records showing up in the list, which is business accounts and individual accounts. Perfectly fine. So that's our use case. If you notice, that's our use case, right? It is returning a list of all the record types for an sObject. But just in case you had to use the schema class, how would you do it? Right? So it's good to know 2 methods than 1, right? So this is one way of doing it. The other way is by looking at the schema class. All right. So again, if I look at the schema class, what method do I have to use? I have to use the get global describe because it contains all the information about all the sObjects. Correct? So what will we do? We'll use this get global describe. So let's try to build our method similar to how we did it in one of our previous use cases. Okay. So this is one type of solution. The other type of solution, I think I need the list variable for now. I'll just not comment it out. The other type of solution is basically I'll start with schema. What is the method I need? Get global describe. Correct. Now let's open the get global describe. Now what do I do next? I don't know, right? So let's open the get global describe. See, it returns a map of string comma schema dot sObject type. Correct. What do we do next? We go to the schema dot sObject type so that we find something else or some other method, right? So before jumping into that, this is a map, correct? And it has a string as the key and the value is the schema dot sObject type. Now, what does it mean? It means it will show you that, okay, this is account and this is the entire information of account. It's contact. It is the entire sObject type information for contact. So if I were to access a specific object, could I simply use the dot get method here and put the sObject name? Would that make sense? First of all, just tell me this. Let's try to decode it. Schema is my class. Dot get global describe is my method of the schema class. Cool. So when I execute this, what does it return? What is the return type? It is map of string comma schema dot sObject type, which means string is the key and schema dot sObject type is the value. Correct? So if it is a map, what method do I use to get a specific value for a specific key? The get method. So what am I saying? I'm saying dot get and I'm passing the sObject name, which is my key. Correct? So what will this entire line do? It will give me the sObject type information or that sObject type value for that one record in the entire map. It will not give me all the records. Make sense? Right? So now we can go to the schema.sObject type class. All right. So if you see, we can now go to the schema.sObject type class. And if I see on the left panel here, you'll notice that sObject type has its own sObject type methods. And we have to figure out what to use here. So you have something called get describe and get describe options. So again, whatever is describing or giving more information about the sObject is what I need. Correct? Because I need to reach a point wherein I am already in that particular object, and for that object I need the record type info. So where will I get it? I'll get it within the object metadata information. So I've already reached that stage here. So I'm already on that particular object. Now I'll just say get describe. What will get describe do? It will return the sObject result for this field, meaning for that account object, it will give you the entire description. All right. And what is the kind of description it returns? It returns a value which is of type schema.describe sObject result. Okay. So I can go to this particular class and I can see what kind of methods that this particular class contain. All right. What is this particular class? Describe sObject result. Right. So describe sObject result should be here, and describe sObject result has a lot of methods again. And if you remember, we did the same exercise for one of our previous use cases, and we took a look at, I believe what was that particular field? Maybe the get name or get key prefix. Remember, we looked at the key prefix of that particular object and we iterated and we looked at each one of them, correct? But now we just have one value because we have already passed the object name in the get parameter because we have a map collection. And now we have reached the describe sObject for just one record. Right? And for that one record, again, I have a set of methods. And if you are looking at this list very carefully, you can very well see that you have record type information available by name, by ID, and by developer name. So you can choose to pick any method. So if I go by developer name, which is unique, or by name, which might not be unique, I can just choose one of them. So I can simply say get record type infos by developer name would be my next method that I can call. Save. All right, and I'll just go ahead and return this particular value here. Now before even jumping ahead, I want to show you how this data looks like. All right, let's try to deploy it. And let's try to take a look at the anonymous window, and let's try to execute the same thing again. All right, executed fine. Let's take a look at the debug only log. The list will be empty, but if you see, it has the information for each record type. The first record type is business_accounts, and it has all the information. What is the developer name? What is the name? What is the record type ID? Whether it is active, whether it is available, is it the default value? And then the same kind of information on that metadata for the individual accounts record type. Correct? Right? So that means again you have a map to deal with, right? If I go back to this describe sObject by get record type info by developer name, it returns a map that matches the developer names to their record type. So you are again getting the entire description of the record type. Correct? And this time the string, that is the key, which is the key. What is that key? That is the developer name of the record type. You see, you read it properly. See, this is the key, equal to this entire thing is the value. So what is the key? The developer name of the record type. All right. So what can I do again? I can now iterate, because see, now I need the list of my use cases. I need the list of all the record types. So now I cannot just choose one record type, right? So I have to iterate over it. Correct? So how do I iterate over it? Before iterating, I have to store it in a variable, right? So I'll create a variable. I'll call it record type infos. Now, what kind of data type is this variable of? What kind of data type is it? It is basically map of string comma schema dot record type info. Correct? I hope now you're getting that hang, because we have come in so deep into the schema class, 1 level, 2 level, 3 level, and now this is the 4th level we'll reach. Okay. So this is the data type of the record type info. Right? So if this is the data type, which is a map, can I say if I want to iterate over this map, how do I iterate? I can iterate over each key set. So I'll say for each dev name, or rather it is the developer name, in record type infos dot key set. Is that a right way to iterate over my map? Yes. Correct. So this will iterate 2 times for the account object. And if the object passed is contact, it will iterate only once, because only one record type is there. Correct? What can I do here? I can simply say record type names dot add. See this magic. Record type infos dot get dev name dot get developer name or get name. Understand what have I done? This is my list variable, and I'm using the add method because I need to extract the names of each record type. Correct? So I'm iterating over the 2 record types that are coming as part of the key set, because this string will contain 2 values, two values in this map, 2 keys. Correct? So this will run twice. Make sense? Next, when it runs the first time for the first record type, I'm simply saying record type infos, just let's extract this bit out. Record type infos dot get dev name. What does this mean? This means record type infos, that's the map, dot get dev name. Dev name is the string. So what am I saying? I'm saying give me the specific value for a specific key. For the first record, it will basically evaluate to this. So what will it return? It will return this entire value, which is after the equal to sign, this entire value. And out of this entire value, I am asking, using the dot operator, just give me either the developer name or the name. Correct? Because I want that string information. And how do I know that I have to do dot get name or dot get developer name? Again, let's go back here. See, what is the type of the value that it contains? Schema dot record type info. If I go to schema dot record type info, you will notice that schema dot record type info has this methods. Where do I see it? Let's take a look. Record type info methods, and you see I have these methods available. So I can use the dot get name or dot get developer name. Make sense? Which is why I just went ahead, after this is executed, I'm just saying dot get developer name, and this will essentially return the developer name. Okay, but just for the sake of it, let's call the name value. Okay, let's not call the developer name value. All right, and now this dot get name, this entire thing will basically extract the name of that record type for each key that is present in the record type infos map. So it will add business space accounts, then it will add individual space accounts, and it will return it here. Makes sense? Want to see this in action? Let's go ahead and say deploy. Let's give it a test. Let's see what is returned now. I'll just go ahead and say return it for account object again. Okay, let's see, debugged fine. Let's click on the debug only log. So it's returning me 3 values now: business accounts, individual accounts, and master. Now what happens is, master is a record type that Salesforce manages and creates on its own. Okay, when there are existing records in the system and then you create a new record type, the existing records don't have a record type to be assigned, right? So they are given a default record type that's called master. It's not visible normally, but when you create a new record type, you'll see that, okay, master is also available. Okay, I'll just quickly show you. So if I go to accounts and if I go to record types here, you'll see business and individual, 2 record types are available. All right, but if I look at the page layout assignment for each record type, you will notice that there's a master record type also. So this you can consider, this is the implicit or the inherent record type that is provided by Salesforce. Okay, so in order to not consider it, what can you do? You can simply go ahead and put a check if in case you don't want to consider it, because this is a implicit inherent record type, not something that we created, right? So you can simply say if def name not equal to master, only then go ahead and add the value to the list, or else don't even bother. Okay, so now this will only add the ones that we create on our own, the custom record types. All right, this is now deployed. Let's try to execute again. Executed fine. Let's take a look at the debug only logs. And this time it is business accounts and individual accounts. All right, if I were to change it for contact, what does it show? Let's see. Ran fine. Let's take a look at the debug only logs. It is person contacts, the record type that we created. Okay, what other thing can we do? We can define this master string variable here on the top as a final string, and then we can leverage it just for the sake of not having a static hard-coded thing on our code. All right, did all of this make sense? The first approach, the second approach, how we reached this point, all of it? If it was a bit too fast, no worries, play the video again, and I'm sure in the second attempt, second iteration, you will understand it. Okay, what is a better way to understand it? Write this code on your own, and instead of jumping to this entire line, right, try debugging and printing what comes as part of each method that we call. Print out this, then print out this, then print out till here, then print out till here, then print out till here, then print out this bit, and then finally print out this bit. When you debug it, when you see what the result is showing up, you'll understand, okay, this is the record type, this is the return type, this is the data type, this is what it means. And then with your knowledge of using lists and maps, you will be able to understand and isolate and extract the names of the record types. Okay, essentially the first option is much better because it's very straightforward, very easy to do, right? But that's when you have an sObject name, right? And let's say you don't have a hard requirement of not using this scenario by Schema class, but be mindful that Schema class will be your best friend whenever you're writing Apex closed code. If you are good with the get global describe and at least till here, you will for sure understand, okay, how is this extracting the values and what is it giving? For example, I'll give you a use case. When you're writing a Lightning Web component and you need to create a drop down, right? And that drop down should be picked. The drop down value should be picked from the field of a sObject. Let's say the industry field. It is a pick list value. So you need that same field in your LWC front end. So if you have to extract that information of what the pick list name and the API name is, you have to use the Schema class because that information is in the same repository. If I show you quickly, if you see schema, let's go back. What was that? It was schema.recordTypeInfo, no, describe sObject, right? So if I go to the describe sObject result, and if you take a look at these methods, right, you'll see some pick list methods are also available. All right, about the fields. It might not be here, maybe one object below or one object above, but you have some pick list related values and field labels also. So you see get label, all right, based on the fields. You have the fields object, fields method. So if you see sObject type fields. If you open sObject type fields, you'll be able to understand, okay, if I need a pick list value, I need a field and a label. So you have to go one more level deep. So it's very important that you know how to traverse the schema class and how to reach that endpoint so that your use case is met. Okay. So comment below, schema makes sense, if you were able to understand this particular piece of code, our last use case. And from here we'll move on to triggers. I'll talk about it in a while, but before this, there's a second part to this method. Ensure that you have a method that checks for a specific record type and returns the record type ID. So I'd encourage you to create a method around it, okay? Because the video has already been a bit longer than I expected. So give this a try. Very simple thing, just take a record type name and return the record type ID. You can very well choose to go with the first option or the second option, that's fine. Or you can even make the code more modular and more dynamic by accepting two parameters, sObject name and record type name, okay? And then return the record type ID, okay? So give this a try. Comment below schema makes sense so that I am aware that, okay, this made sense to you and this was helpful. And this was our last use case for our use cases that we have been doing, so that I could help you understand how to build logic, how to build that decision making skills, and how to actually create some problem thinking so that you are able to think on your own that, okay, I can approach this problem in this particular way and this is what I can use to solve it, right? So these use cases will help there. The next bit that's coming is, what did we learn from the use cases, right? So these might look like individual small snippets of code that we have written, probably 5 lines or 10 lines, but I'll give you a summary of all that you learned as part of the last 29 videos that we have created, about 350-400 minutes of content that you have seen, that I've recorded and I've shared. I'll give you a list. I'll tell you and I'll explain you all that you have now learned, okay? Just by doing this small use cases and understanding this code. And once that is done, we move on to triggers. Apex triggers is the core of Apex, because all your sObject events, create, update, delete, undelete, governor limits around that, come under the triggers concept. All right. And what I already have is a triggers playlist. What I'll be doing as part of this curriculum is, I'll be concatenating the entire trigger video with my explained part, which is probably an hour-long video that talks primarily about Apex triggers and explains you the basics, the nitty-gritties of Apex triggers. And then I have 30 use cases on the Apex triggers, which will make more sense because you'll be actually dealing with practical use cases with actual sObject events. Okay, so I'll be concatenating that entire video into one video and I'll be uploading it here. For those of you who do not want to see this video, feel free to take a look at that playlist, which I have. I'll put it on the community post. And for those of you who want to look at it here in as one video, it will be available here. Why am I doing this? Because I have to actually ensure my curriculum has all the content in the order that it is supposed to have, so that someone who starts from chapter 1 does not have to go somewhere else to refer. All right, so that video is coming up next, and then we'll move on to, let's say, test classes and errors and exception handling. So we are kind of coming towards the end of our Apex curriculum, which is an amazing thing. But yeah, that's all I wanted to tell you at this point. If you have not subscribed yet, do subscribe. And yes, please write schema makes sense so that I understand, yeah, it made sense. And in the next video, let me tell you all that you learned from the last 29 use cases. Cool. A lot of talking. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.